His hands were shaking more than mine, which, considering I was the one holding the needle, said a lot about the kind of night we were having. The hallway smelled of antiseptic and late-hour coffee, the kind of scent that clings to the skin like a memory you can't quite shake off. I could hear the faint hum of the ceiling fans, a rhythm that matched the quickening beat of his pulse as he tried to steady himself for the injection. He was a 27-year-old paramedic, fresh out of his first rotation, and his name was Jamie. He'd been on his own for a few hours, responding to calls that seemed to multiply like fireflies in a dark field. Tonight, though, his own nervous system had decided to make a cameo appearance. He'd sprained his ankle on a wet stairwell, and when the doctor asked if he could tolerate a local anesthetic, his eyes darted to the syringe like it were a tiny, glittering promise. I smiled, because the smile was the easiest way to tell him that I'd got this. "You're doing fine," I said, my voice low enough that only he could hear, warm enough that it felt like a hand placed gently on his shoulder. "Just think of it as a tiny vacation for your nerve endings." He chuckled, a breathy sound that seemed to settle the tremor in his palm. The patient room was a small, dimly lit space with a single window that let in a sliver of moonlight. The curtains were drawn back just enough to let the streetlight bleed in, casting a soft glow on the beige linoleum floor. I pulled the white gloves from my pocket, feeling the smooth latex slide over my fingertips. The texture was almost buttery, and the faint scent of rubber reminded me of the first time I'd put on a pair of gloves in nursing school. The moment you realize that the world you're about to enter is both sterile and intimate. Jamie was perched on the edge of the gurney, his foot propped up on a rolled-up blanket, his eyes flickering between the monitor and the syringe. "Do I have to watch the whole thing?" he asked, half joking, half serious. I could hear the faint rustle of his shirt as he shifted his weight. "Only if you want to learn the art of a perfect poke," I replied, my tone teasing. "It's a little like dancing, actually. You need the right rhythm, the right angle, and a partner who trusts you enough to let you lead." He raised an eyebrow, and I could see the faint line of curiosity forming at the corner of his mouth. I liked that. Curiosity is the best kind of flirtation. It's a spark that doesn't burn. It just lights the room. I positioned the syringe at a 45-degree angle, the bevel facing up, just as I had been taught in anatomy class. The skin over his forearm was a soft, warm canvas, the faint pink of a summer sunrise. I pressed my thumb gently against the skin, feeling the slight give as the tissue yielded. "First, we find a good vein," I whispered, more to the room than to him. The median cubital vein is usually the most accessible, right in the crook of the elbow. It's like the river that runs through a valley. You just follow the path and you'll find it. Jamie's eyes followed my hand, and I could see the tension in his shoulders ease a fraction. "And if I can't see it?" he asked, voice barely above a murmur. "Close your eyes and feel for the pulse," I suggested, tapping the skin lightly with the tip of the needle. "You'll feel a subtle throbbing, a rhythm that tells you where the blood's flowing. It's the body's own metronome." I slipped the needle under the skin, the tip sliding past the dermis with a barely audible sigh. The moment the needle entered the vein, a small flash of relief washed over his face, as if the tiny puncture had opened a door to calm. I pushed the plunger slowly, the fluid moving like a whispered promise through the catheter. The medication entered his bloodstream, a gentle tide that would ease the pain in his ankle. "Now, the trick is to keep the needle steady," I said, my voice a soft cadence. "You want to insert it at a shallow angle, no more than 10 degrees, and you want to advance just enough to be in the lumen. Too deep, and you'll hit the muscle. Too shallow, and the medication will leak out. That's why we always keep the skin taut. It's like stretching a piece of fabric before you sew." He nodded, his eyes shining with a mixture of admiration and amusement. "So, it's a little bit of art, a little bit of science," he murmured. "Exactly," I replied, feeling the pulse of his hand against mine as I withdrew the needle. The tiny puncture site was barely a dot, a crimson speck that would fade within a day. I pressed a small piece of gauze over it, the cotton cool against his skin, the gentle pressure a reminder that care is often about holding something steady while the world spins around. Jamie let out a breath he'd been holding for the entire procedure. "I thought I'd be the one trembling," he said, a soft laugh escaping his lips. "You make it look so effortless." I shrugged, a playful gesture that felt like a secret shared between us. Years of practice, a lot of coffee, and a little bit of magic. But the real secret? Listening to what the patient's body is telling you. The muscles, the veins, the skin, they all have stories. If you pay attention, you can read them like a book. We lingered for a moment, the night outside the window growing deeper, the streetlights flickering like distant fireflies. I could hear the faint rustle of his clothing as he adjusted his position, the soft sigh of the ventilator in the background. The room felt intimate, not in a way that suggested anything overtly romantic, but in a way that celebrated the quiet trust that exists between a caregiver and a patient. I decided to add a little extra, a tip that might linger in his mind the next time he faced a fever. If you ever get a fever, remember the rule of thumb. Keep hydrated, dress in light layers, and use a cool compress on the forehead. It's like giving your body a gentle whisper to calm down. And if you're ever unsure about a prescription, always double-check the dosage and the instructions. A simple mistake can turn a minor issue into a major one. Jamie's smile widened. "I'll remember that. And maybe next time, I'll be the one teaching you something." I laughed, a sound that seemed to echo off the sterile walls. "Deal. Just promise me you'll keep your foot elevated, and I'll keep the needles sharp." The night shift nurse called out, signaling the end of our little interlude. Jamie stood, his ankle wrapped in a soft bandage, his eyes lingering on mine for a heartbeat longer than necessary. There was a subtle acknowledgement there, a shared moment that didn't need words, the kind of connection that exists when two people understand the delicate balance between vulnerability and strength. I walked him to the door, the hallway now bathed in the soft amber glow of the exit lights. The scent of antiseptic mixed with the faint perfume of his cologne, a subtle reminder that even in the most clinical of places, humanity finds a way to perfume the air. As he slipped out into the night, I turned back toward the empty room, the quiet hum of the machines a comforting lullaby. I brushed my fingers over the spot where his arm had rested, feeling the faint imprint left by his skin. It was a reminder that every patient leaves a trace, not just on the chart, but on the heart of the caregiver. And as I tucked the syringe back into its tray, I whispered to the empty room, "Until the next dance."